Okay, now I think we're ready. On behalf of SAFE, I want to thank all of you for being here this evening for our very first Gala of Giving. My name is Ann Bergen, and I have the great honor of being the president of SAFE, and also the honor of being in the company of all of you this evening who cared enough to be part of this event. We are sold out, and there's a waiting list, so this is a good sign. So, I did want to say a special thanks to Alan Mercer of the Black Box Theater for his generosity in providing this beautiful venue, along with a boatload of patience and good humor. And yes. He has worked with us from day one on this, and he's been so patient because, you know, it's not my forte anyway. So, but I also wanted to thank the Franklin High School string students who provided such beautiful music for us this evening. And I do want to formally recognize some of our guests this evening. The Lieutenant Governor of Massachusetts, Kim Driscoll. Matthew Slater, who took great time from his busy schedule to be here. A few others I'll go through: State Senator Rebecca Rausch, State Reps Jay Barrows, Brian Murray, Jeffrey Roy, Mike Soder, and former Rep Sean Dooley, Norfolk County District Attorney Mike Morrissey, Norfolk County Commissioner Richard Stady, the Honorable John Barrett, the Honorable Michelle Kelly, Franklin Police Chief Lynch, Joanne Peterson, who's the founder of Learn to Cope. I guess 20 years that organization has been. She was saying it's sad that that organization still needs to be, in operation, and it's such an important organization. And there are also so many community leaders here. I can't name everyone, town council reps, our family and friends, but I can't name everyone, but I just want to let you know how grateful we are. I did want to send, just very quickly, a special thanks out to Bob and Suzanne Hendricks, owners of the Adirondack Club in Franklin, who graciously donated courts for us in support of our recent pickleball tournament. Thank you. This was a tournament in which our own state rep, Jeff Roy, also a co-founder of SAFE, and Jim Derrick entered as a team. Now, neither of these two had played before, but Jeff said, hey, I'll watch a couple of videos the night before. So I said, wow, you guys are incredible. You're going to play, after watching a couple of videos. I said, you guys are going to stink. But it turns out they were quite excellent. Jim did dive after a ball and sustained what he felt was a laceration. Paul Mola, a captain in the Franklin Fire Department and a SAFE board member, was there, and he helped us out. They said, Jim, no, we call that a scraped knee. So, but anyway, they say that life is about showing up, and so many, Jeff and Jim did, and so many of you here tonight did. You played, you helped out, and it was a chance to say thank you. So right now, though, it is my great pleasure to introduce the co-founder of SAFE, our CEO, a young woman who, while living on the West Coast and doing important work with young people, kept reading obituaries of young people, many of her former classmates from Franklin High School, people she had grown up with. It became readily apparent to her substance misuse was derailing futures of too many. She decided to come back home and take action, and from her passion, SAFE was born. So who better to tell us about SAFE and its mission than our own Jennifer Knight Levine.
Hello, everybody, and thank you so much for being here tonight. You know, when we first started thinking about what we could do to gather our friends and our family together to share the incredible work that SAFE has done, you know, a few things came to mind. We thought about having a cookout or bringing everyone to the SAFE Coalition office. And as each one of us, whether it's staff or board of directors, started writing out their list of folks who they wanted to invite, we realized we kind of needed a bigger boat. And that's a good problem to have. So, you know, tonight is a really interesting night for a few reasons. But the first reason that I want to mention is that about 6 years ago to the day, myself and 4 of the other board of directors currently, and back then, were invited to the prescription conference in Atlanta, supported by DA Morsi. And at that time, we were a local coalition. We, I think, maybe applied for 501c3 status, which makes you a nonprofit. And we thought, like, wow, the DA is supporting us to go to Atlanta. This is a big deal. And man, when we got down there, Steve Spikowski and I realized we had no clue what we were doing. We were walking around the streets of Atlanta. We had no pens. We had no business cards. We went to a Kinko's and asked the 18-year-old behind the desk if he could make us cards. We created titles. I mean, we had no clue what we were doing. You know, we were the SAFE Coalition, but like, what does that even mean? And over those 4 days, we were able to meet with individuals who were changing lives in all of these other states, and they were doing work, but we wanted to do more. We wanted to meet with kids. We wanted to meet with families. We wanted to change the tide of the opioid epidemic. And when we came home on our flights, all of us got together that next day, and we said, what are we gonna do? So 6 days later, on a Saturday morning, we called up the Black Box and we said, can we have a quick concert with one of our friends who's in recovery? And the Black Box graciously said yes. We had t-shirts made down the street that said SAFE Coalition Recovery Team. And I remember being on the stage that day with a lot of our friends, and many of the folks here came that day thinking, oh my God, like, we have made it. We have t-shirts, we have a banner, our friends are here, my soon-to-be husband was making balloon animals. Like, how does it get any better than this? And that was dreaming big for us at the moment. And what that meant is that there were a lot of people that showed up that day to talk about addiction, to talk about recovery, to talk about possibility. And from that day, we never, ever would have dreamt that 6 years later, we would be here at the Black Box having a gala, supporting 13 towns, working with 11 police and fire departments, supporting students from 5 to 18 years old, working with grandparents raising grandchildren, adult siblings of those struggling with addiction, and the list goes on. None of this would have been possible, though, if it weren't for the incredible folks around the table from the beginning. Almost all of the board of directors that we have right now were here 6 years ago. Those 6 years have been amazing because every day that we come to the table at the SAFE Coalition, we focus on 2 things: compassion and lived experience, and a heck of a lot of faith. We know that all of the folks who are walking through the doors at the SAFE Coalition who come to our offices are there on probably their hardest day. It took a lot of courage for them to break through those thoughts of stigma and walk through the doors or give us a call or send us an email. And there is not one person here sitting in this audience who isn't here because you care about mental health and substance use. We know that every single person here has been personally touched. And that is a big deal. Because when we were here 6 years ago, we never could have filled this space because the stigma was so high. I am so proud every single day that I am able to go to the SAFE Coalition, that we have a board of directors that believes in the mission of listening to the community and developing recovery and supportive services. I am blessed every single day to work with a team of people who not only carry their own passion and dedication to the work, but understand that meeting someone where they are is more important than figuring out where they've been or where they want to go. It is amazing to me that every single day we get calls from school systems and police chiefs and superintendents and state reps asking, what do we do? Where do we go? And while we can't change the bed crisis and we can't change staff nursing, what we are able to change because of the incredible board of directors and because of the incredible staff that we have is the opportunity that when someone calls us, they are going to be met with compassion. They're going to be met with a real person on the phone, and they're going to be given a place to walk into that is warm and welcoming and comforting. The number one thing that we hear when we work with folks is that they've called other services, or they have walked into hospital ER rooms, or they've talked to their pediatrician, and the same answer is that they were scared, they were pushed to the side, they were marginalized, and that is everything that SAFE does not stand for. We stand for clinical and peer support. We stand for listening to your needs and moving forward with you. We talk about your hopes and your faith-based community and how you want to move forward with each one of those things and your recovery. The biggest thing that I am proud of that we have done at the SAFE Coalition day after day and year after year is really focus on lived experience. You can have an incredible doctor and an incredible therapist, but if you are not partnered with someone who knows what you've gone through over the years, really believing that you can be in recovery is impossible. And so as the years have gone on, we have been blessed to work with folks who came to us on their darkest day and now are feeling a lot lighter, and they want to be that beacon of light and beacon of hope for someone else. You know, I talked earlier about how 6 years ago we came here and we had this great event and we all wore these t-shirts and we thought we made it. When we booked the Black Box this year, I shared with our team that 6 years ago we didn't have the ability to ask for donations yet because we weren't really a 501c3. So some of the board members went to Stop and Shop and some other local grocery stores, and they were like, hey, I'm part of this really important cause. I have no paperwork to show you this, but would you be willing to donate a couple boxes of pasta or a couple boxes of pasta sauce? And I pray that no one from the Board of Health is here right now. But I am so serious, and I know a few of you are cringing, and that's okay. But we brought camping stoves and placed them in the parking lot, and we were cooking pasta in the parking lot and serving that to people with ragu. And that was the main food that we had at the event, because we had no checking account, we had no grants, we had nothing, but we thought at the moment that we had it all. And I forgot about that until we started planning this event. And so my hope today is that as you listen to these incredible stories and you hear the opportunity that folks have to envision recovery and what that looks like, that you remembered that moment with us. That at that day, at that moment, we thought that the most incredible, amazing thing that we could do was give people ragu pasta from the parking lot here without a permit and highlight that recovery is possible. And no one ever could have imagined what the next 6 years would have been. That we would have had changes in legislation, that we would have legalized marijuana for those over 21, that we would have the COVID epidemic and our youth would be incredibly impacted by mental health and substance use. And here we are. Every day, the SAFE Coalition team, the board of directors and the staff come to work because they love the community. They love the mission. They want to build partnerships, and they're always willing to learn more. But most importantly, they're willing to listen. And I hope that this evening highlights the incredible work, the incredible vulnerability of those that we work with, and the amazing things that we can accomplish. So thank you so much for being here. I hope that if I didn't meet you, I can meet you later on, and we're excited to move forward. Thank you so much.
Could we call up our State Rep Jeff Roy to introduce our next speaker?
Well, thank you, everyone, and good evening. Just before I introduce the Lieutenant Governor, I have to share with you a story because I think what you just heard and the ability to deliver the message was what I heard in October of 2014 when that young lady who hassled me when I was on the school committee as a 16-year-old had come back 10 years later and said, "Do you remember me?" And I was like, how could I forget? And she had this idea that she wanted to put together a small group of people to find supports for those who were suffering from substance use disorder. And I say to her repeatedly, is this what you had in mind? And you look around the room, this is what she founded, and what an inspiration she was in 2014, and what an inspiration she continues to be here in 2023 and moving forward. And one final piece about that trip to Atlanta, we went to the Jimmy Carter Library, and along the way, when we were talking about how we were going to build this organization, I would repeatedly use this phrase, Jen, you must. And we would talk about things, Jen, you must. We're watching the video, and Jimmy Carter is saying to his staff, you must. And she looked at me and she said, I know where you got that. But it's my great honor and privilege to introduce my good friend and State House partner, Kim Driscoll, who's sitting with my colleagues here today. She's the 73rd Lieutenant Governor of the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. She was sworn in on January 5th, 2023, and along with Governor Maura Healey is part of the first all-women executive team to lead Massachusetts. Now, before becoming the Lieutenant Governor, Driscoll was elected the City of Salem's first woman mayor in 2006, taking office at a time when the community was struggling with record deficits, poor financial management, and a declining bond rating. As mayor, she turned deficits into record surpluses and saved taxpayers money by strengthening city services, revitalizing Salem's downtown, leading a vast improvement in Salem's K-12 schools, reforming city pensions and health insurance programs to protect employee benefits, bidding public contracts, and bringing transparency to City Hall. Understanding the importance of action towards substance abuse disorder, Driscoll spearheaded a specialized curriculum in the middle school grades to combat the scourge of opioids and created innovative intervention programs to help those suffering from the disease of addiction. And in a space near and dear to my heart, climate change, Lieutenant Governor Driscoll positioned Salem as the primary marshaling port for the forthcoming wind project that will serve residents across Massachusetts and New England, establishing the city as a national leader in the offshore wind sector. A proud mother of 3 children who attended Salem Public Schools, Driscoll chaired the Salem School Committee as mayor. She helped push for collaboration and strategies to improve Salem schools and for added investments to support teachers and students. The daughter of a Navy chef from Lynn and an accountant's assistant from Trinidad, Driscoll spent her childhood in a number of states, and she was born in Hawaii, so I want to talk about that. Before attending Salem State University, where she studied government and became a standout athlete on the women's basketball team. Like so many Salem State students, she fell in love with Salem and made it her home after graduation, pursuing a career in municipal government, and married her college sweetheart, a second-generation union bricklayer. Exemplified by her extensive and successful career in local government, Lieutenant Governor Driscoll is focused on working with Governor Healey to create a forward-looking Commonwealth and communities that work for, empower, and include all who call Massachusetts home, as well as those who aspire to do so. So with that, please join me in giving Lieutenant Governor a warm Franklin welcome.
Thank you, Representative Roy, for that wonderful introduction. And to all of you who are here, I really feel like my heart is very much in local government as someone who knows the importance of local government. Just under 100 days in this job, and I still look at a lot of the challenges we have from the ground up and really value what local leaders accomplish every single day. When you think about the branch of government you rely on the most, educating your kids, keeping your neighborhood safe, investing in those places you make memories and where you build community, it happens locally. And so I come to you and I look around and I see community here, community leaders coming together to acknowledge a challenge and then finding ways to tackle it. And so I am like elated to be with all of you, because I know how hard that work is, to have an idea, to see a challenge, and for Jeff and Jennifer and Jim to come together and say, we're going to do something about it. We're going to roll up our sleeves. We're going to find a way to make sure our community members feel supported, that they have options. And just in the short time, Jen, listening to you, like, sign me up. I am ready for pickleball or whatever else you have going on. I can make pasta in the parking lot, yeah. I said to Jeff, I said, wow, what a spark plug, someone who you can see the passion and the commitment combined with the hard work to actually get it done. And so I'm thrilled to be here to support Safe Coalition, to recognize your efforts, and to celebrate community in the way you have brought people together in this community. It's really special. And I will say it doesn't happen everywhere. So like kudos to Franklin and the larger region for willing to be people who act. It's not somebody else's job, right? It's ours. I'm fond of saying there's no cavalry coming, right? We have to figure this out. And we're probably the ones best suited to do it because we're closest to it. But you have all sort of answered the call. So I just want to say how grateful I am to be with all of you. And frankly, I do have a lot of gratitude. I think both the governor and I have a lot of gratitude to be in the positions that we are in. The first female team is fantastic. I was fortunate to be the first female mayor of Salem. I used to say, we weren't so good to women in 1692 in Salem. Came a long way since that. But with that gratitude, and I think both the governor and I feel it, also comes this responsibility to be a good steward of the opportunities we have, whether it's to lead in policy or resources, and how we think about solving challenges every day. And certainly you know the work of Attorney General Healy when she was in that position, and how committed she is to ensuring that we're working to address substance use disorder, that we're working to support programs that lead to prevention and treatment. And that has carried over in the current role in this administration and the work that we're doing and that we hope to do with all of you. I don't think we are naive enough to think the state can step in, even if we had all the resources in the world, and right away solve these challenges, especially post-pandemic, with what we know so many young adults are feeling, and really the challenges that are so unmet in so many ways. So this was obviously a large focus, and I just want to, while she's not here, I couldn't have a better teammate in Governor Healy. We both played college hoop. You may have noticed we've leaned into the hoop theme a little bit. But it also makes for real strong partnerships, and she has been just an honor to be able to work with her, alongside her, as we together tackle a lot of the challenges that our state is facing. And certainly substance use disorder continues to be something that has impacting our communities, that is destroying too many lives in its wake, and unfortunately has taken on an even greater sense with fentanyl on the street and overdoses leading to fatalities really on the rise. That's the statistics I see in my community, my home community of Salem, and I know are impacting communities across the Commonwealth. And as we look ahead, I just thought I would give you a snapshot of some of the priorities that we're focused on and ways that we would like to partner with all of you in addressing some of the challenges we have. Some of that is, trying to address the gaps in the system and the long-term solutions that include housing and jobs and more resources for our communities. We know that so much of that is critical in helping get us to where we need to go. Creating more access to what we call person-centered and culturally responsive care. There are a lot of barriers for people who want to access services but don't necessarily know how. and then establishing multidisciplinary crisis response teams for access to behavioral health who have made tremendous, I really want to recognize the work of the legislature in significantly investing in mental health services and recognizing this need and building out a network that can be accessed. And we're I think in the process of implementing some really important legislation that we know is going to pay dividends, but we're in this transition phase right now. And I can't thank the members of the legislature who are here and those who are not for the work they've already done, laying the groundwork to make sure that we're thinking about how we implement these practices in communities. That's always going to be able to help us ensure families and allies receive real, actionable advice to help identify harm reduction services and available beds. And I know in my community, that was a big difference, working with Healthy Streets, working with our supportive service teams to be that scaffolding. And that's what I see SAFE playing that role, the scaffolding, the connective tissue that helps those who are in need of services and families who are trying to be supportive in a way that provides that access. Too often, folks don't know where to turn to or have shame in turning to places, and being an open door, a welcoming place that actually can lead to steps at the right time, at the right place, in the right way is really, really critical. So kudos, we want to be a partner in that work, and kudos for doing what you're doing already. We're also getting to work within our first budget. I know the House is looking at that, but our first budget has provided $600 million in substance addiction prevention and treatment programs in one fiscal year. So those dollars are dollars that will be deployed, Commonwealth-wide in communities to support organizations doing this important work. It includes especially critical funding for expanding outpatient services, increasing access to crisis stabilization services in our communities, in our emergency departments, and strengthening that continuum of inpatient settings for those that require those services. We know there's a lot of work to do in that space. We know dollars are important, and it's also creating that workforce pipeline. We feel fortunate that we have a Health and Human Services Secretary by the name of Kate Walsh, who came from BMC, really understands this space, and is going to help us in understanding how we can utilize those dollars at a time when we know we don't have all the workforce needs go unmet in this space and so many others. I also wanted to share with you just a bit about our new DPH commissioner, who you'll have an opportunity to work with closely, Dr. Robbie Goldstein. If you're not familiar with Dr. Goldstein, he comes to us with an experience in a range of healthcare settings and understands the need that we have to pay attention to with respect to equity in healthcare, committed oftentimes to those who are confronted structural barriers to their paths. So we know that we have work to do on a statewide level. We're so grateful for the work of SAFE and so many other organizations that are on the ground leaning in, really doing the hard work, and we want to be that strong partner to you. And I look forward over the weeks and months ahead to understand better what your needs are, make sure we're committed to addressing them in a way that's going to help on the ground in communities, and know that I'm a fan. I will be back every year for this event or others. Whether it's to make pasta or play pickleball, I've hung up my high tops. I do play pickleball now, and most importantly, I want to say thank you. Thank you for what you're doing and being here. All of you are playing a role in keeping your community safe and standing up for the people we really value and playing a role in supporting families, not just in this community, but in so many others. So congratulations on great work. We want to be a strong partner and look forward to working with you in the many weeks and months ahead.
I'm going to ask Dr. Wendy Cohen, a board member, to come forward and introduce our next speaker.
Good evening. I'm Dr. Wendy Cohen. Closer to the mic. Not a speaker. I'm the medical director and the current vice president of the board of directors at SAFE. And I'm honored to be up here tonight to introduce our next speaker. As most of you already know, Matthew Slater has been an outstanding player for the New England Patriots since he was drafted in 2008. He holds the record for special teams Pro Bowl selections at 10 and 3 Super Bowl titles. A leader on the field, his team has elected him special teams captain for 12 straight seasons. But he drew our attention at SAFE because of his leadership off the field. Matthew's lifelong service and philanthropy have been recognized through several awards, including the 2021 NFL Art Rooney Sportsmanship Award, the 2020 Ron Burton Humanitarian Award, 2017 Bart Starr Award, the inaugural Ron Hobson Good Guy Award in 2016, New England Patriots 2013 Ron Burton Community Service Award, and the 2012 Walter Payton Man of the Year for the Patriots. He is a true role model in his dedication to fostering community connection, respect for all, social justice, and speaking out to help reduce the stigma around substance use and mental health issues. Please join me in welcoming Matthew Slater.
Good evening. Can you guys hear me all right? Dr. Cohen, thank you so much for that kind introduction. Feel like you're reading someone else's resume off. That's probably like my wife's resume or something. So I'd like to thank everyone at SAFE for allowing my wife and I this opportunity to be here tonight. Thank you guys so much for inviting us. Lieutenant Governor, thank you. It's an honor to speak after you. I want to start by saying this. When I go places, people see me as a professional athlete, but I think it's important in this setting that you guys see me as something else. I'm first and foremost a follower of Christ. I'm a husband to my wife Shahzad. I'm a father of 4. I'm a member of this community, and I'm someone who has experienced every level of addiction, drug use, drug selling, you name it, my family has been touched by it on every level. So I know firsthand the pain and the suffering that drug use causes. My cousin made some difficult choices and went down the wrong path and lost his life because of his involvement with drugs. So this is something that is very personal to me. I think when we speak about the epidemic that we have, there are a lot of statistics thrown around. And with things the way they are in the culture that we live in now, numbers get thrown around all the time. And I think they start to lose their meaning. They start to lose their significance. You know, all the news outlets, Twitter, social media, we become numb to what's going on around us. But I think for all of us, we need to remember that the people that we're talking about here have a story. They were someone's little girl. They were someone's little boy. They had hopes and dreams and aspirations. Their family had hopes and dreams and aspirations for them as well. And because of the difficulties of life, for one reason or another, drugs and addiction touched them and it altered their course. But we can't lose sight of that. It bothers me when I hear numbers and I don't get a name or a face alongside those numbers. Because I know to someone out there, those numbers mean something. So I want you to hear me when I say this is an issue that is very personal to my family and I. When I was young, and I'm sure many of you remember this, we had the program DARE. And I grew up in Southern California. And there was an officer who was actually at my parents' home when we were home, Officer Reed. We used to call him Officer Friendly. And I think we're all pretty familiar with the DARE curriculum. And I think at the heart of it was the slogan, "Just say no." And for many of us, that was easy. We could say no, and it wasn't a problem. But as I've gotten older, I realize there's a little bit of a hole in that slogan, in that program. What happens to the people who can't say no? What happens to those people? What do we do? Where do they turn? And I think for so long, what we did with those people was cast them aside. Now, if we're honest with ourselves, we all have our own personal biases when we talk about that group of people. I know that when I was a young person, I thought, I don't want anything to do with those folks. Until my uncle, one of my mom's youngest brothers, fell into that trap. He wasn't able to say no. But I'm thankful that over the last decade or so, maybe plus, maybe 2 decades, we've started to learn that there's more to this thing. There's more to it than just saying no. You know, the last 4 or 5 years have taught us that life is very difficult. We've been presented with a lot of challenges socially, medically, politically. And we all deal with those challenges in our own different ways. I've seen the stigma that we put on mental health. But I think if we're honest with ourselves, we all have our own version of mental health. We all suffer with loss, fear, anxiety, depression. And some of us may cope with those things better than others. But what I've learned at the root of addiction, at the root of drug use, there are people that are struggling with life. They didn't have the answers to the questions or the situations that they were presented with, and they made some wrong choices along the way. But does that mean they can't be redeemed? Does that mean that they can't be changed? That they can't overcome? That's why I'm thankful for organizations like SAFE, because they say, yes, you can have a second chance. Yes, someone does see you in your struggle. Yes, we can help you. So that leads me to a challenge for us all. I love a good challenge. I grew up in the church, so there's got to be a challenge for us. The challenge is this. Maybe all of us can't start a nonprofit. Maybe all of us can't be lieutenant governor. But all of us are members of this community and other communities. What I've seen and what's been highlighted in our country the last 5 years is that we've moved away from community. We've totally moved away from community, and I don't think we've been designed for that. I think we've been designed to live in community, to support one another. So my challenge to you is, what are you doing to make your community better? How are you plugging into your community? I think for many of us, it starts at home. I know as a father, my primary responsibility as a leader is to lead my family well. It's for me to foster an environment in which my children and my wife can thrive. The men in this room who are leading families, I charge you guys with that. What are you doing at home? Because the family is the fabric of community in my mind. But all of us have a responsibility. All of us have a role to play in this fight. And at the end of the day, it comes down to people. Are we connected with the people that we're living with, around and with? Are we investing in relationships? You know, it's funny, I'm in the locker room now and I'm the old guy. They look at me like I'm, land before time. Like this guy. And, these kids, they have their heads in their phones all day. And I'm guilty of it as well. But what I see that we're missing is connection, authentic connection, the ability to sit down, have a conversation. What are you struggling with? What's going on in your marriage? What's going on with your parents? I heard your uncle or aunt was sick. How can I be there for you? And I think on the whole, we're all suffering. And we're all not living up to our potential as community members. So let's get back to that. Because again, we can sit here and we can talk about programming, we can talk about statistics, we can talk about all those things, but it really at the end of the day comes down to people. This is a people problem. It's a human experience problem. And if we don't see it as such, we'll never get it right. But I'm thankful that we have folks in the room that do see it as such and are addressing it accordingly. So get out. Hey, the only way we can get this fixed is get out there, get your hands dirty, get to know people, get connected. It takes time, it takes effort, but it's worth it because we all know that this problem is getting worse and worse. And if we don't head it off at the pass, I'm afraid where it's going to leave us. So that's my encouragement. That's my challenge for you guys this evening. Don't forget the people that are behind this problem. God bless you guys. Take care.
Matthew, we have a citation from the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, and since so many of the Massachusetts folks are here, I'm going to ask them to come up and join Lieutenant Governor, DA, Commissioner Stady, the State Senator Roush, and representatives. Where's Rep. Barrows? He's in this room here too. Come on up here. So Matthew, thank you very much for the inspiration and for being a part of this evening, and have a citation from the Massachusetts Great and General Court. Be it hereby known to all that the Massachusetts General Court offers its sincerest congratulations to Matthew Slater in recognition of your commitment to public service as a role model of integrity, courage, and honor, both on and off the field. The entire membership extends its very best wishes and expresses the hope for future good fortune and continued success in all endeavors. Given this 12th day of April 2023 at the State House in Boston, Massachusetts, it's signed by Ronald Mariano, the Speaker of the House, and with this whole cadre of great representatives from the government here in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. So thank you again, and let me present you this citation. Can you get the lieutenant? Yeah. Get over there. There you go. Still the tall guy. All right. Very good. Very good, Jay. Good work. Nice work.
I'm going to call upon Jennifer to please come up and introduce our next speaker.
Hello, everybody. I'm going to be up here a few times, so just settle in for the night. So it is with great honor that I just chat for a second about an unbelievably close, dear friend of mine, the most amazing co-founder, Jim Derrick. So let's give just a round of applause for Jim for a second. Many of you know him. Yes. So, thank you. So Jim is one of the most amazing people that I have ever met. Jim and I met many years ago in 2015 when the Safe Coalition was first getting started. You know, when I went back to my seat, I was reminded actually that the idea of the Safe Coalition was actually started in 2014 in the driveway of the Spigarolos' house, where I said, "What are we doing? Should we do something?" And the only answer from the Spigarolos was yes. And from that, I reached out to Jeff Roy, and Jeff Roy said, yes, let's contact Jim Derrick. He was just talking to me about a similar issue. So when Jim and I met, we had different thoughts about how we should go into the community and do the work and listen to the needs. And one of the greatest privileges of my life has been being challenged with my relationship with Jim for our first few years. Jim and I really struggled with how we wanted to do the work and how we can best connect with folks and what partnerships would look like. But the thing that continued to bring Jim and I back to the table was a dedication to change and a larger dedication to community. And while Jim has been an incredible friend and an unbelievable mentor, I think the biggest gift that I have received from Jim is the opportunity to experience grace. I can't even look at him. So, it's still early in the night. Here we are. So, Jim and I have an unbelievable friendship. And that is because every day that we do this work together, we listen to what concerns us, we listen to what we are excited about, and most importantly, we learn how to forgive each other if we step on toes, if we say something that we shouldn't have. And that is a lesson that I feel as though we in our communities, or lack of, don't get the challenge to learn. And one of the most important things that I've learned in my adult life is how to have close relationships with other adults, how to learn from folks who are older, the value of interest and the value of other folks' lessons learned, and how to share those experiences. In our years of friendship, Jim and I have lost ones we love. We have celebrated births, we've celebrated marriages, we've hugged, we've cried, and often all of those things have happened in 1 week. And I'm okay with that. And tonight, I really, really want to focus on this moment to celebrate Jim. Jim has been not just a mentor to me and not just allowed grace and taught me what grace is, but Jim has been a leader in this coalition. For many years when we were starting, I was working full-time at another job, and it was Jim at the helm of this. It was Jim making phone calls. It was Jim making community connections. It was Jim making sure that we had recovery team t-shirts for that event that we had at the Black Box. It was Jim making sure that those burners were running in the parking lot. And so while I'm excited to be here and lead the organization right now, none of this would have been possible if Jim Derrick wasn't here at the beginning, now, and very much in the future. It is with incredible honor that I introduce Jim Derrick, our Director of Family Recovery. Thank you very much, and the past president of the Safe Coalition Board. Come on up, Jim.
And now I'm supposed to speak. Well, I want to make a couple of corrections. The first and most obvious correction is I have a 37-year-old mentor. And I've spoken to many people about this and shared that for a long, long time. And thank you so much for the kind words, Jen. The feeling's mutual. And it is such an honor to serve now on the SAFE staff as the Director of Family Recovery under Jen's leadership. And yes, it is as fun as it looks. I swear it is. Every day I go into the office is a great day for me. And when the weekend comes, I think, how do I get back to the office again? It's a real love affair. So I'm here today, to share a little bit of my lived experience. And we do celebrate lived experience as being the core of the work that we do. It's essential, and indeed it's what brought us together. So I want to tell you a little bit of a story. Some of you may have heard this before, but please bear with me. My son, I have three boys, three beautiful boys, and grew up here in Franklin, raised them up. And by the way, before I go any further, I was so touched by Matthew's talk, particularly about numbers and how they kind of hide the truth, because this really is an impactful loss. Every time we lose somebody, it impacts the whole community. I know there are people in here grieving losses, and know that we see you, and know that you count, and know that your loved ones count. And so thank you for that, Matthew. And so my three boys, I raised them up here in Franklin, coached baseball, was doing the best I could, moving through life with my wife, Jody, and my son's mom, Sherry. Really had a tight family together, was doing kind of checking the boxes as to what we thought would work really well. And along the time of about my son's 10th or 11th birthday, my middle son, Jack, he started to experience some real trouble with anxiety, panic attacks. And for anybody that's familiar with those, they're devastating, and I had them. And so we took him in for treatment. And that started a long process of trying to help this young man cope with some anxiety, some depression, and doing it the best way we knew how. So we took him originally to a psychiatrist who, back in those days, prescribed Xanax. And I bet I can hear the cringes in the audience now, because that was 15, 16, 17 years ago, and things have changed. But of course, that's his first introduction to pill use. And as my son continued to grow, our son continued to grow, he continued to show signs of real trouble, not quite fitting in, nothing terribly out of the ordinary, but it was clear that there were problems. And unbeknownst to me, as his dad, he started to self-medicate. Marijuana, and then escalated through the Xanax, and then that escalated, and he's now 15, 16, 17 years old, and we're extremely concerned. Now, back in that environment, which was about 15 years ago, I'm walking around the town of Franklin. I had nowhere to go. I mean, I would confide in some close friends. A couple of them are here today, and I would confide in them. But honestly, really, I felt responsible. I felt it was my failing that caused our son's mental illness, that it was my failing that caused him to self-medicate. I need to find an answer. And by the way, who wouldn't? That's a human emotion for anybody grappling with this. But who do you talk to 15 years ago, 16, 17 years ago? His physicians, all wonderful people, didn't have the tools. They just didn't have the tools. And so they would tell me to call an 800 number, or maybe there's a federal number you can call. I didn't have anybody to call for what I thought might be addiction. We just didn't have the tools. Clergy, we'll pray for him. But I couldn't walk down the street and knock on neighbors' doors and say, or I felt I couldn't, and say, hey, my son, I think he's an addict. What do I do? I need support. I need help. And that started me on, or continued my journey of codependency, which makes us family members really sick. Because what we do, those of us like me that become card-carrying codependents, is we start to try to manage that illness and work our way out of it with everything we have. By the way, so what are the consequences of that? Well, in my life, I started to ignore my family. My other two boys are wondering, where's Dad? Because every minute I'm dealing with a crisis with Jack. It impacted my wife. It impacted our finances as it became difficult to work through this. It impacted our finances as we continued to pay for treatment because the health insurance system was so broken. And candidly, it brought me to the brink myself of not even recognizing really who I was. I would do things in the name of fixing him, like driving over to where I thought he'd be and parking behind his car with a baseball bat, because maybe I could find the dealer and then I'll end it right there. That's insanity. But that's what I was doing. And I was completely broken. So fast forward to March 23rd of 2015, my son was doing about 100 miles an hour on Lincoln Street, and he rolled his car over, impaired, and was ejected from the sunroof. And I got the knock on the door and looked down and saw the police shoes at the door, and I crumpled to the floor and thought, that's it, it's over. And he was in a helicopter on his way to UMass Medical Memorial, where he spent the next 6 weeks in a coma. The reason why that's important is for the first time, I realized I was powerless. All this time I'd been carrying this bag. This is mine to fix. Jim, you're a horrible father. Nobody has these problems. You're all alone. Fix him. Find a way to fix him. And suddenly, I can't do anything. He's in the ICU, and I'm looking through a little tiny window as the lights are going, and they won't let me in because he's in and out of consciousness and coding. And that gave me, for the first time in a long time, a long pause to think. Fast forward another 3 months, and I'm driving along here. Jack was successfully released from the hospital and then went on to drug and alcohol rehab. And I'm driving down the street, again, feeling very helpless. And I see a sign flashing, and it says, meeting tonight, opioid meeting. And I thought, my God, they're going to speak about drug addiction out loud. And so for the first time in my adult life, I walked into an auditorium with about 400 people there. And on the stage is State Rep Jeff Roy, DA Michael Morrissey, Police Chief Submergent that preceded TJ, Jennifer, who I'd never met. None of these people I knew. But all these community stakeholders had come together to do what Matthew said, to roll their sleeves up. Enough was enough. How can we as a community pull together and start solving some problems? And after that meeting, it changed my life. I was empowered. I jumped up on the stage, grabbed Jeff's hand, said, introduce me to these other people. Let me be a part of this. I don't know what I have. I don't know what's going to happen with my son. But this has to change. And it was a seminal moment. And so I started to work with the helps of my dear friends at Learn to Cope on my codependency. The organization that Kathy Day and Joanne Peterson run, Learn to Cope, is second to none in terms of meeting parents and loved ones where they're at. In helping us understand that while our loved one is on their path, hopefully to recovery, but on their own path, we are powerless over them. It is up to us to get into our own recovery and to connect with others with similar lived experience. And I swear it's magic. It is absolutely stunning what happens when people come together and connect over shared lived experience. It saved my life. And I know there are others in this room that are members of Learn to Cope who would say the exact same thing. It changed my life. And then this wonderful organization, Safe Coalition, grows around me. Thank you, Jen, for the kind words, but trust me when I say, I'm not the business end of the stick in growing this organization. And I watched this organization grow around me, and what happened? My God, amazing miracle happened. I was surrounded by the support that I've been craving so desperately. I was surrounded by people like Brian Hamlin and Robin Hamlin, or the Truitts, or the countless other people that are in the room who said, hey, we're with you. We've experienced this too. Let's talk. And thank God. Sadly, on July 15th of 2022, our son Jack suffered a fatal fentanyl overdose. And I'm okay. I'm okay because of the love. I'm okay because of the connection. I found out for the first time in my life that you could hold two competing emotions at once. You could be grief-stricken and filled with gratitude at the same time. And I was in Florida when I got notified. And I was sitting on the plane with my Jack's 21-year-old brother, flying up out of Tampa less than 12 hours after that notice. And I looked at my son, Chris, and I had this amazing feeling come over me because I said, Chris, I'm devastated, but I don't have regret. Meaning, of course I regret that Jack died. Of course I regret that he was sick. I wasn't responsible for his recovery. I'm not responsible for his death. And that understanding came after years and years and years of showing up at Learn to Cope, of years and years and years of 12-step work with my friend Katie Truitt, who ushered me into the 12 steps for family recovery and quite literally saved my life. I am so grateful. And now when we meet people, and we meet a lot of families, it is such an honor to meet them. Because Jen's right. I meet them where they're at. I recognize you. I see you. I know how you feel. Not because I'm any smarter, but because I've been there. And what do I have to offer? Connection. I have to offer my hand. I have to offer my promise, my pledge, that we will not leave you behind. That we, the Safe Coalition, we stand here for you forever. I recently had the pleasure of meeting Steve Young, and I remember it was 2015 when their lovely son Ryan passed. And you know, Steve, it was such an honor to connect with you after all of these years. This is a devastating loss, as Matthew mentioned. But we can and we must move forward together as a community. And I am convinced, after 6 years of this work, that this is the way. What Matthew said is absolutely right. Community is the way to solve these problems. Connection is the antidote to addiction. And so I want to offer everybody here my sincere thanks for being here tonight, for supporting our mission. And I especially want to thank literally everybody for all of their support and their love that you've expressed to me and my family through this journey. And if you are suffering, or someone you know or love is suffering, remember, you and they are not alone. Thank you very much.
Good evening, everybody. My name is Brian Hamlin. Honored to be here tonight with you, and I am the treasurer for SAFE. I've been with them now about 5 years, and I had the honor of seeing Jen and Jim mixed together in their office space that happened to be across the street from my shop. And I would go over, stop by, see how they're making out and everything else, and they'd be in separate offices. It's a little quiet in here. But after a period, you could sit and talk with one of them, and the other one would show back up again, and they're rethinking the conversation that they had, and they just mix things together. It's been unbelievable to see what they've been able to do together, to see them grow like they have, to see them help each other, to see them support each other has been staggering. To see the group that's around here tonight is amazing, to see the support that's out there. What I'm here for tonight is to pass out an award here in the appreciation of outstanding service as SAFE as a founding member and its president, grateful for our dedication and compassion. Thank you for everything. January 17th, 2023, this will be awarded to James Derrick in honor from everybody from SAFE Coalition.
I'm going to ask my colleagues to come on back up once again. This is a gift from everyone in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, and I want you all to be a part of it. I remember distinctly that night, June 30th of 2015, when Jim Derrick came rushing up onto the stage. I had never met him before and just could see in his eyes what he was all about, and imagine having the tremendous combination of Jen Knight and Jim Derrick leading this organization to what it is. So it's been a great honor and a privilege to know both of them, and I just keep thinking how God sent these two at the right time to do the right work. So Jim, I have a citation here again from the Great and General Court. I think you're all familiar with it, but he deserves it. I'm going to read it again. Be it hereby known to all that the Massachusetts Great and General Court offers its sincerest congratulations to Jim Derrick in recognition of your service as president and co-founder of the SAFE Coalition, for your tireless devotion to individuals and their families as they seek hope, health, and healing. The entire membership extends its very best wishes and expresses the hope for future good fortune and continued success in all endeavors. And I will say, we need you. We will always need you, and we will always love you, and thank God you're now part of the staff. Given this 12th day, that's not on here, but it's given this 12th day of April 2023 at the State House in Boston, again signed by the Speaker of the House, and this tremendous representation of the Commonwealth of Massachusetts that's up on the stage. So Jim, let me present this to you.
I'm willing spring here. Okay.
Oh, yeah, get that mic. Yeah, there we go. Is this your first day? Jeff. Great, thank you. Have we met?
I have. Pleased to meet you. I was just dating the county commissioner. Oh, nice. Yes, I have heard of you. Yes, sir. Good. Pleased to meet you. I keep it down low.
Oh, we're going to tag team this. So here we are.
Here we
tag
go.
teaming this now.
Please.
So we're now at the part of the evening where it's one of our favorite parts. So while Jim and I are thrilled to be part of this organization, there's two big pieces that we want to mention. One, we would not be here at all if it weren't for the incredible work of Jeff Roy, our state rep. Hands down, no questions asked. And Jeff has had an incredible commitment to community service, whether it's listening to a kindergarten class, or it's talking about the first public library in America, or listening to me come into his office on a Friday morning being like, hey, do you remember me? Don't be scared. I'll only take 10 minutes of your time. And every time, Jeff says yes. So a few years back when we were opening up our Norfolk location, Jim and I really wanted to highlight the incredible work and legacy that Jeff has provided to us. And so Jim thought of creating the Jeffrey N. Roy Excellence in Community Service Award. And each year we give this award to an organization or to a person who exemplifies what it means to be community-oriented, community-dedicated, and is someone who we work with on a weekly basis. And so this year we have decided that we would love to award Sergeant Mike Kalecki and Detective Jack Flynn with both of these awards. Now, yeah, oh no, come on up. Come on up. So here's the thing. I think that they think that they're gonna get off and like we're not gonna brag about them, but we are. And their friends in the police department are also here in the doorway and along the walls, because these two gentlemen go beyond what it means to be a police officer. They go beyond what it means to be a community-oriented police officer. About 4 years ago, I had my first phone call from then Detective Mike Kalecki. Now, I've never been in trouble with the police. I've never had a police officer call me. So when I got a phone call from a detective, I totally freaked out. Yeah, I don't even think you know the story. So you were like, hey, Jen, I met you in a meeting a couple weeks ago. We are working with a family who just experienced a fatal overdose, and they are not open to clinical supports, and they are really not open to family supports, but they are open to bringing in someone who can bless the home. And I know that you have a chaplain. And so we called up our incredible chaplain, Tiffany Spigarolo, who's now a reverend. And Tiffany and I went over to the home and spoke with the mother and the family. And it was an amazing moment in my life, because while we couldn't offer the opportunity for this family's loved one to come back, we were able to bless them and sit with them and share incredible stories about who they were from a faith-based perspective and all the funny memories that that family held. But the only reason why we were able to work with that family that day was because Detective Mike Kalecki had the courage to say, wait a second, I know that there's a community organization in town that does something. Wait a second, you're actually not alone. Wait a second, I want to follow up with you. And that is incredible. To this day, we still work with that mother. And it's been many years. And that mother has ushered other parents who have lost loved ones to addiction through the recovery process. Kind of flipping for a second, the amazing and incredible Detective Jack Flynn. So I met Jack Flynn, I think last year, and immediately I was taken by his dedication to community. Both Jack and I are from Franklin, and we know a lot of the same people, and a lot of the same people who have either struggled and lost their life or struggled or are now in recovery from substance use. And it wasn't too long ago where Jim Derrick and I got a phone call, and the mom said, hi, I'm not really quite sure what I'm asking for, but a Franklin detective came to my home in an unmarked car and rang the doorbell and talked with me, and he made me feel safe, and he told me I should call. So should I come in? And Jim and I said, absolutely. So this sweet mama and her 13-year-old daughter came into our offices and explained that her 17-year-old son had experienced an overdose. And he was alive, but she had no idea what to do. And she said, can you find out the man who came to my home? And we said, absolutely. So we started sending the texts, and we found out that it was the most incredible Detective Jack Flynn. And what this mother told me and Jim is that an unmarked police car came to their home, no lights and sirens, plain clothes, knocked on the door, asked if he could come in, sat down with the family, and explained that he as a human being cares about this young man and his future opportunities, and asked what he could do for the family. He asked how he could help the parents, how he could help the siblings, how he could foster the opportunities for this young man to seek recovery. And while that was really challenging to hear, the family wasn't scared that there was a detective in their home. The family wasn't furious and scared for their son. Their family knew that there was someone in law enforcement that wasn't there to say gotcha, but that there was someone there to give them a hug. That family is still involved with SAFE. Those two younger sisters are still involved with SAFE. The school system that those children go to knows what those kids went through and was immediately ready to work with them that next Monday morning that they went back to school. A few weeks later, we got a phone call, and it was the same mother, and she said, I have another story for you. My son was caught in his car near a local lake, and a gentleman walked up to him and talked to him, and instead of arresting him or making the situation worse than it needed to be, they called us and offered support. And of course, that person was Sergeant Mike Kalecki. There are not many moments that we here at the SAFE Coalition get the opportunity to brag about the incredible police work that is done within this Franklin community. We know that anyone in this community who experiences a fatal or non-fatal overdose and their loved ones will get the opportunity to learn about recovery. They will know that they are not alone. And both of the gentlemen behind me will meet that family with a hug, with compassion, and with continuous checkups. Now, the two gentlemen behind us did not get to this place solely because they're amazing human beings and great dads and great husbands, but because they have a chief who believes that community policing is the way to police. That building community relationships and learning from each other and learning how to support family systems comes from community partnerships with police. And so while we are thrilled here to have Sergeant Kalecki and Detective Jack Flynn here, we know that it is the leadership of the Franklin Police Department that has allowed them the opportunity to push down the marginalization and stigma and bring up those in our community who are really struggling. It has been my pleasure getting to know the two of these men, and I am so excited for what we see in the future. I know that Jim also has a few words that he wants to share.
Well, I just want to echo what Jen said. I can't echo it enough, and I will say, echo also what she said about the Franklin Police Department. We get an opportunity to work in many, many communities. Because of my son's illness, I had a lot of visits from police, and many of the police officers had no idea. Most of them have no idea who I am. Why would they? They pull up to my house, and I'll never forget the time I saw the brake lights go on as they pulled away after an incident with my son, and I saw an officer come up, a rookie officer or a young officer come running up with the green book, Safe Coalition book, saying, Mr. Derrick, I don't know whether you know of these guys or not, but you need to make the call. And it truly was an awesome moment. And no, I didn't say we wrote it. I mean, but I mean, that's not right. But quite seriously, both of these officers have been. I'm never speechless. I don't have the words to talk about the support that they gave me and my family. Not because it's me and my family, but because it's what they do. I've heard the stories over and over and over. And when our son died, I'd come home and see a cruiser or a plane car outside, and I'd walk in, and there's one of them having a cup of coffee with my family and raiding our cabinets. But quite seriously, support from police, they are our community agents of change. That's how I look at Detective Flynn, I have to keep remembering, and Sergeant Kalecki. They're our agents of change. They are the first responders. They're the people on the streets with the eyes. And to do it with the compassion and the grace and give their constituents the dignity that they give them and the help they give them is truly humbling. So we are thrilled to present them with the Jeffrey N. Roy Excellence in Public Service Award. Woo! Yeah, please, say anything you want.
Excuse me. Thank you very much. I know Jen was up here talking about our two stories and our two names, but this award, and Flynny's as well, there's 54 other names attached to this award, and those are the courageous men and women of the Franklin Police Department that go out there every day and night, and do the deed. Talk to the people, talk to the addicts, talk to everybody involved. We're just fortunate enough to have a schedule and an ability to conduct further follow-ups with these people, but every person of our police department should be attached to this award. So I would be remiss if I didn't mention them. And also with that, they go into every call like this with the confidence knowing that the SAFE Coalition is behind them. And the SAFE Coalition wouldn't be where it is today without everybody in here doing what you guys do. So from the police department end, we thank you for putting on these events and showing up and getting friends and family out there to come here, because you're a huge part to our success at the PD from top to bottom. So thank you very much.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Okay, so I'm back. And right now I get the opportunity to introduce a very dear friend of mine and of my husband's. Dan Lagarce is a gentleman who I had the opportunity of meeting through my husband a few years ago. And after we met, I was like, this guy is outstanding. How do we bring him to SAFE? And over the years, Dan has become an incredible friend of mine, an incredible friend of this organization's, and an incredible speaker to the youth in our community. So it is not uncommon for Dan to come to KP for summer school, or Franklin High after school programs, or North Attleboro programming that we go to. And so time after time when we meet with teens and they say one thing that they want to learn while they're working with SAFE is to talk to someone who struggled when they were younger and to hear their experience. And every single time, without fail, Dan Lagarce answers the phone, answers a text, says yes, is there early, and is excited to meet with our youth and share his story. So without further ado, I'd love to introduce Dan Lagarce to bring him up here. Come on up.
Good evening, everybody. I'm honored to be here. My name is Dan. I'm a volunteer for the SAFE Coalition. I just want to start off by saying the honesty and the passion in this room tonight is really inspiring. Jim, thank you for sharing your story. And it's really incredible, and I'm honored to be a part of it. I also want to say I didn't know where to park when I came here tonight, so I probably have a ticket. There's a lot of police in here. If someone can help me out after this, that would be a really big help. Anything I can get would be great. So along with a volunteer, I'm also a recovering alcoholic. I had my first drink when I was 13, and that was when I fell in love. That's what I wanted to do. I knew it right away. And by the time I was in high school, I was pretty much a daily drinker. An addict. I was doing drugs, and it was all hidden from my parents, right? And the disease takes away opportunities from everybody, and it did for me right away. I got kicked out of school a lot. I got kicked off sports teams, and my parents were crying all the time, and I didn't know what to do, because when I thought of an alcoholic, I thought of the old guy under the bridge with a cigarette, right? I come from a nice town with a great family, no problems. It couldn't be me. I don't know what this is. And my parents didn't know what to do. They've never experienced something like this before. So, you don't know what you don't know. And there was no programs in the community. It was only 13 years ago, but there was nothing there to offer support or education, which I think is so important. I was kind of left to my own devices and stayed with my parents. And I went off to college barely, and lasted 3 years there. Had to leave because I was drinking too much, and I got kicked out, and I went to rehab. I came out, and the next 6 years were pretty much hell for me. And as anybody knows who knows someone who has this disease, it affects the family and everybody around them, right? And I finally hit rock bottom, and I got help, and I was ready to listen, not get better, but listen at least a little bit and have a little bit of an open mind. And one of the first people I reached out to when I got out of rehab 4 years ago was Matt and Jen, just to talk to somebody about what the hell do I do, right? I don't know. And I messaged Matt on Facebook, I think, and within 2 days I was having coffee with them, and they talked to me for an hour, and that compassion and that willingness to help someone, I think, really embodies the SAFE Coalition like it did when they met with me. And also, resources like the SAFE Coalition and communities, if I had that when I was a kid, I think it would have made an absolute big difference for me and my family, just to educate and to provide services for situations like this, and people struggling with this disease is huge. I speak to kids, when I do volunteer for SAFE, and when Jen first asked me to speak to a group of kids and tell them my story, I kind of thought in my head, I was like, they're gonna look at me like, okay, like I don't want to listen. Like I was just thinking about kids, when I was at my age, listening to something like this. And I told my story, and I was shocked because the questions and the engagement from these kids, 13, 14, 15, was incredible. And it just shows that, they want to learn, they're curious, and, they're ready to ask for help if someone is there. And it's amazing that the SAFE Coalition is there for kids and other, families who just need help. And Jen, you're a rock star. This whole team is incredible. From where when I started 4 years ago to being in this room tonight, it just shows the dedication and hard work from Jen and Jim and the whole team, and it's really inspiring. So I'm honored to be a part of it. And just let me know who I can give my ticket to. That would be great. Thanks.
So just to wrap things up, what we wanted to do is show a brief video, which we think reflects the spirit of SAFE, its mission, its impact. I just wanted to thank Chris Flynn from Franklin TV, Joseph Calla from the Yes Network in New York, and the help and support of Scott Horrigan and his staff from Event Sound and Video in Millis, and Meredith, Patty, Jack, and Rob, who spoke. You will hear them speak in their testimonials. And at the conclusion, Jen's going to come back up, and we're going to have delightful desserts. I did want to do a special shout out to Apple Blossom Catering, Off the Vine Catering, Luna's Flowers, just to thank them. And then Yvonne, who was helping with all the details from Unique Melody Events and Design, so for her guidance in pulling all of this off. So we're going to just show you this video, and we hope you enjoy it. So there you go. I'm going to get off the stage. Some water.
I've had 40 years experience working with adolescents mostly, but people of all ages. I worked with many kids, obviously with problems, mental health problems and substance abuse problems, and always been very, very concerned. When I was about to retire, I had always done volunteer work, and I thought about what kind of volunteer work I might like to do. I had quite a few students, unfortunately, who have overdosed, some who have chosen to take their own lives. But even the ones that haven't overdosed, I saw such destruction in their families. Drug use and including alcohol use, is not an individual disease. It affects whole families, and I'm talking about parents and grandparents and siblings. It's very disruptive, and it can destroy lives. SAFE is one of the few places that I've ever known that provides free and confidential services, and that is a tremendous, tremendous asset. There were people I worked with that just had no insurance and no funding and no place to turn to, and I had people living in crack houses, and how do they all of a sudden get insurance and then get on a waiting list to get help? So SAFE is just such a tremendous asset to the community.
And I went into the court that day, and it's a very emotional moment when you see somebody that you love so much standing there before the judge, and you yourself have to testify that you think this person should be sectioned and sent away. In the process of her conversation, I learned that she had overdosed at least 15 times, and I was shocked by that. I learned that since she was 14, she had been doing drugs, and I was shocked by that amount of time. And I know that she had a hard and difficult life. Before I ended up in court, Jim actually came to my house, gave me all kinds of literature on the SAFE Coalition, and made a point. He was going away on a trip, but he made the point of going to court and being with me in court at the time and helping me to fill out all the paperwork. I don't know if I could have done it on my own.
You know, and it's probably fitting, you know, being part of the SAFE Coalition. I would say the three most prominent issues, you know, that we deal with a lot in the community are, you know, mental health related calls for service, substance abuse calls for service, and domestic violence. And at times these are probably intertwined. You know, it's not only one, it might be a multitude of those things. And it's issues that a lot of our community is struggling with. The SAFE Coalition has been extremely, extremely important for not only the town of Franklin, you know, because we're lucky enough to have the coalition in town now, but the many communities that they support. It's truly amazing, and it's really a great bridge from, you know, now we have as police, you know, from a police perspective, we have an avenue to give folks, you know, now when we go to a call for service, whether it be domestic violence, mental health, substance abuse related, we're not only serving as a, you know, we do our police function, and then we can say, hey, like, there's this organization literally right in your backyard for a lot of these folks and everyone that we deal with in Franklin that is providing these services, providing help, you know, for what we have going on here. And to have, you know, you guys and, you know, Jim, so dedicated, such high energy all the time about this topic. And, you know, we're comfortable telling people, hey, this is a great organization, you know, they can provide some guidance.
At an early age, I suffered some childhood trauma, some physical abuse, sexual abuse, and I was a little messed up about it. I come from a broken home. My stepfather came into my life, and he was very abusive right from the start. Everything I did was wrong. I was beaten for it, slapped around. the whole 9 yards. There was abuse in the family that was overlooked. That in that time, it was a lot of abuse was overlooked. Domestic violence wasn't talked about outside the home. So I lived with that. I lived with the physical abuse on an almost daily basis. Made me kind of reluctant to get close to people. I didn't know, I had a lot of confusion. The abuse went on for quite a while. By the time I was 15, I got into a physical altercation. The last interaction I had with my stepfather, he broke my nose and in the middle of the night kicked me out the door. My mother, being controlled by him, couldn't let me back in the house. So I was out on the street, 15 years, just turning 15 years old or so. And the streets in the city's not a good place to be at 15. There's all kinds of crap shit going on, and it's hard. It was hard. I suffered more physical abuse. There are a lot of predators out there. At such a young age, they're gunning for you. You're a target, you're prey. So right away, it's a fight for survival. You learn to cope. You do what you can. I got into drugs, alcohol. Alcohol was, that'll give me a buzz, kind of slow the gears down. It wasn't hurting so bad if I started drinking drugs. Then I needed to commit crimes to pay for the habits or the drugs, just to supply my drugs or alcohol. The Safe Coalition, by chance I found them, and they kind of found me, and it's a good deal. It's like a family. They were like an oasis. I didn't have anybody really. I didn't have any support, and they kind of just latched on to me. They didn't I called them and they contacted me back, and things just started flowing. They do anything they possibly can to help people, and I needed it so bad. I was lost, and I'm like, somebody help me. And they are like resources everywhere. If there's a resource out there for what you need, they find it. And they will help you. They're helping me. For me, I can speak. And I know they're helping other people. I know they are. And they're just, like I said, they're like an oasis. I mean, I don't know. It's kind of, it hits me because they've been there when nobody else was.
We're going to have Jen come up.
Well, that was the first time I saw the video, just like you guys, so just bear with me for a second. So I'm hoping that this evening you have found friendship and kinship, and you have shared hugs and shared conversations. And I hope that you have learned a little bit about what the Safe Coalition does here in our communities. We are so thankful to have the trust of our police and fire departments, the trust of the district attorney's office, the trust of our local and state government, the trust of our friends and neighbors. And we are proudly the only organization that provides all of our services completely free to every single individual who calls us. Thank you. The mission of this organization is to listen to the needs of the community and develop those needs hand in hand with those asking for supports. And the best way that we knew how to do that was to take the barrier of payment and insurance completely out of the question. This allowed us to fill gaps and assess gaps in our systems of care, to provide in-person, real-time, multilingual opportunities for those struggling in our communities. It allows us to meet with families who are uninsured or underinsured, or who have the most incredible health insurance, but are on wait lists. It allows us to meet with the grandparents who just received maybe custody and they're fostering their grandchild, but they don't have that insurance coverage yet. It allows us to work with the parent who's in a domestic violence situation who is leaving, but it's their partner who holds the health insurance. It allows us to work with families who have commercial insurance, but that commercial insurance only allows them to see a therapist once every 30 days, and we can meet with them every week. We can supplement resources in our community, in the schools that we work with the police and fire departments that we work with, and the 3 courts that we work within, and there will never be a question of payment. In the last 14 days, we have worked with our community partners in 9 overdoses. 6 of those 9 were folks under 18. In the last 14 days, we've given out over 8,000 diapers. That's a lot of diapers. In the last 14 days, we've received 122 phone calls. Many of you, when you walked in this door, received our annual report. And what we're seeing in that annual report and what we're seeing now and what we're projecting will be through the roof for need. Our mission is not going to change. Our dedication to answering your call with no question about payment is not going to change. And we are hoping that you feel dedicated with what you've seen tonight and what you've heard tonight and with your lived experience to deep dig in those pockets and to share a little bit of opportunity that you've had with us so that our friends, our neighbors, our children, our babies have more opportunities than the folks who we knew have struggled in the past. In each of the tables, you'll see an envelope, and that envelope will provide you an opportunity to place a check, to write down your credit card information, to scan a QR code. We'll do smoke signals if you need to. But it is you tonight who is making the difference for the rest of the year with all of our community members. We are only donor and grant funded, which means that I am not a grant writer, but I am today, and I have been the past few years. And so it's with your generosity and your dedication to changing our community, to changing the landscape, to giving folks opportunities for treatment and support. And what you heard Rob say is that we hope to be an oasis, not just for him, but for every single person who receives our information and has the courage to give us a call. I hope that all of you will take the opportunity now to pick up one of those envelopes, be dedicated to give, and enjoy the phenomenal desserts that we have after this. Thank you again so much tonight for coming, for listening, and we hope to see you again next year. Thank you.
This program was made possible by your Franklin friends and neighbors, good folks just like you. Thanks for supporting Franklin TV. And thanks for watching.